They called themselves the Imperial Continuum of Velithar, an empire spanning 3 spiral arms of the galaxy, with millions of subjugated species, and a fleet so vast it blotted out stars. Their emissaries arrived in golden ships, exuding self-importance and a scent I can only describe as rotten cinnamon. We were told their visit was an act of benevolent outreach. In reality, it was a warning cloaked in arrogance. I was chosen to represent humanity not because I was the best diplomat, but because I had 2 qualities they needed: a military background and a sense of humor sharp enough to survive galactic politics. They docked at our orbiting diplomatic station with dramatic fanfare, horns blaring through vacuum via localized pressure waves, banners unfolding in synchronized orbit, and a greeting that included the phrase, "Kneel and be welcomed." We didn't kneel. I greeted them in standard galactic trade, wearing a casual duty uniform and sipping from a coffee mug that said, "World's okayest commander." The lead delegate, a towering insectoid named Zarthul Vek, tilted his shimmering chin in his head. "Is that your battle dress?" I smiled, only when diplomacy gets heated. Their delegation included 6 translators, 3 posture coaches, and a ceremonial executioner. They moved with theatrical precision, clicking and vibrating in tones clearly meant to intimidate. One of them held a long data slate, reciting titles. Before you stands a delegation of the Empire Velithar, kneel lesser being, before the supreme architect of order, the speakers of silence, the lords of gravitic might, the bearers of the 10 million scepters. I laughed. I didn't mean to. It started as a chuckle and ended as a snort laugh, coffee nearly spraying out my nose. "I'm sorry," I said, wiping my face. "It's just bearers of what now?" The translator looked stunned. 10 million scepters. Where do you keep them all? I asked, grinning. Warehouse in orbit? My second-in-command, Lieutenant Imani Reyes, choked back her own laugh. Zarthul Vek clicked angrily. "You find the Empire amusing?" "No," I said, straightening. "I find your performance hilarious. You showed up like galactic peacocks, demanding submission, and your biggest threat is excessive pageantry." The Imperial Guard shifted uneasily. They were expecting fear, reverence, awe. Instead, they got mirth. "We could annihilate your world with thought." One of them hissed. I raised an eyebrow. "You could try, but I don't think you've studied humans long enough." 3 hours later, private chambers. Their attempt at psychological dominance had backfired. Instead of awe, they triggered a contagious wave of amusement across our delegation. One diplomat described the Velithari as space Kardashians with nukes. I kept a calm exterior, but inside, my military instincts were firing. The Velithari weren't bluffing. They did have overwhelming force, but they had never fought anyone who laughed in their face. That, I realized, was humanity's weapon: unpredictability. Our species was born of struggle. We sang during bombings. We cracked jokes in trenches. You couldn't intimidate a species that made memes about extinction-level events. So I changed strategy. The next day, cultural exchange meeting. We brought in Earth artifacts for display. A rubber chicken, a whoopee cushion, a copy of Monty Python and the Holy Grail, a 6-pack of hot sauce, and a Nerf gun. I fired the Nerf dart into Zarthul's chest. The foam projectile bounced off harmlessly. "Human weaponry?" he asked, confused. "Only if you threaten our snacks," I replied. We showed them stand-up comedy clips with subtitles. The Velithari watched in baffled silence. Some began to mimic our laughter, thinking it was a ritual. One of them sprayed pheromones that smelled like burnt citrus. Then Imani played them a video of cats knocking things off tables. That's when it happened. One of their subdelegates, a young larval assistant, laughed. It started with a high-pitched trill and built into a rhythmic vibration. Others looked scandalized. Zarthul looked furious. "You will cease this corrosive nonsense," he declared. I stood. "You invaded the station with arrogance. We countered with humor. Guess which one's working?" He sneered. "The Empire does not tolerate ridicule." I leaned forward. "Then you're going to hate Earth." Transmission intercept, Imperial High Command. We later learned that Zarthul had reported us as mentally unstable but culturally contagious. Their empire feared mockery more than resistance. It disrupted their control mechanisms. The Velethari ruled by awe and silence. We brought laughter, and laughter, it turns out, is a virus. Within a solar week, their own civilians were uploading Earth memes. Military officers began exchanging jokes in secret. Laughter cracked their unity like pressure on a frozen lake. They withdrew from our system, citing unquantifiable socio-cultural anomalies. The truth? They were afraid of a species that found tyrants funny. Personal log, final entry. It wasn't our weapons that stopped them. It wasn't diplomacy. It was the fact that we laughed at their greatness and invited them to laugh too. The Velethari thought they'd crush humanity. Instead, they left wondering why their soldiers were watching sitcoms. I look out at Earth now, that resilient brood. We didn't fight with lasers. We fought with perspective. And for the first time, I think we might actually win this war for stars. Not with strength, but with joy. After all, what's more terrifying than an enemy who laughs in the face of conquest?